shocking new report in the Jeffrey Epstein saga reveals the convicted sex offender paid the college tuition of the kids of the former Virgin Islands First Lady, Cecile de Jong. This is according to court filings from JPMorgan. What's more, that same year, she consulted him on changes to a sex offender registration law.
This all comes as JPMorgan accused by the Virgin Islands of facilitating Epstein's alleged crimes. Additionally, there's some very interesting reporting. Stacey Plaskett, who's the delegate for the Virgin Islands to U.S. Congress, if her name is reminiscent to you, viewers who are hearing this, that's because she was the one who really grilled Schellenberger and Taibbi when so-called journalists.
Yeah.
Then she subsequently sent that letter when one of the acronyms had been flipped, and it didn't really fundamentally change anything about the Twitter files, but saying that, oh, because you perjured yourself, that's a crime and you could face 5 years in jail, that kind of thing. Taking this really weird posturing on the information the Twitter files had uncovered. So I'm not exactly a fan of what she was going for there, but she is the delegate for the Virgin Islands. This also comes from the JPMorgan filings that in 2018, she was doing a campaign fundraiser, and she asked for Jeffrey Epstein to get an invitation. If you'd like to share this invitation with Jeffrey, I'd be much appreciative. I would be grateful for his support and the support of those he may direct to assist me. This is in July of 2018. We just looked this up. He was arrested about a year after that, in July of 2019. He then died or something in prison shortly thereafter. So this is not, we have criticized Bill Gates type people for still being associates of Jeffrey Epstein like a full decade before that.
Right.
This is at the point where Jeffrey Epstein is I think, on his way to becoming a household name for sex crimes against underage people. And she is hitting him up for money. She is proactive. It's not even that he showed up and then offered her money. She proactively says, make sure he comes to my fundraiser. At a time where not only should she have known, but everyone knows. That's crazy.
I think it's not a good look. Now, she says that she subsequently donated those donations to various charities and didn't hold on to the money. I do think, to your point, the fact of her willingness not to take money from him, but also just solicit money from him many years, a decade after he was first arrested and did time for sex crimes, is questionable in and of itself, particularly from someone who has chosen to mount a moral high horse from time to time with respect to legitimate journalism, the likes of which Matt Taibbi and the rest were doing.
This is connections to Epstein that are so much more recent. I want to underscore this, so much more recent than any of the other people that we have criticized for having ties to Epstein. The college president, Bill Gates, the Clintons, Noam Chomsky, all of that was not nearly as recent as this.
Yeah.
This was a year before he dies in prison.
Yeah, I mean, this is painting a picture of the influence that Epstein had on this particular island and how he was willing to potentially even bend its laws in an advantageous way for him. The idea that he would be consulted, again, after he had already been convicted of some sex crimes back in the early aughts, on who qualifies for a sex offender registry. The idea, the First Lady, he didn't just pay the kids' college tuition. The former First Lady was also on his payroll, receiving a salary, bonuses, and other benefits, including $200,000 in 2007 alone. It feels like the man was kind of shadow puppeting the goings-on on this entire island. And so there's this question of the way that JPMorgan obviously is benefiting from turning the other way and handling his financial transactions in furtherance of his crimes, but also the way this entire government seems to be influenced right up to the level of Stacey Plaskett by this man's incredible reach and financial power, and, as we saw in the case of Bill Gates, some of this sort of blackmailing power.
Yeah, this is horrifying. Both of these stories together suggest a very concerning level of influence he would have under the goings-on, the policies on that island. This is beyond, I think it's interesting to call out the hypocrisy of wealthy people, and they should have known better, and what are they doing? All the people we've criticized for having close ties to him. Now he's dictating a policy that there's good evidence that he himself would like to abuse, and having massive financial influence over the island's government and representatives. This being kind of a far off place that is not, I could see. It's easier to imagine a very influential, powerful, wealthy person taking over, or having to have tremendous sway,
more influence, bigger
without,
fish,
because it's
ponds.
not, it's far flung. Its relationship to the rest of the U.S. is distant. It does. I mean, Stacey Plaskett is the delegate. She's not technically even a member of Congress. It's more disconnected from federal control. And it's his little fiefdom, and he has everyone in his pocket, including the delegate and the first lady.
And listen to this: the Wall Street Journal reported, based on these published documents that came out on Thursday, that were filed late Wednesday. The Wall Street Journal reported this on Thursday, that de Jong also helped get visas for several alleged victims of Epstein. This is from the JPMorgan filings. She connected one woman to a local immigration lawyer and worked to get others student visas by arranging special classes for them at the University of the Virgin Islands. This is according to the bank. Some victims were enrolled in ESL, English as Second Language courses. The email in the filings had her saying, they're structuring the class around the ladies. Please let me know so that they know what to do or not to do. This is her writing to Epstein back in 2013. The cost of the course were $8,000, $8,868, and that she would be covering. This is nuts. A troop of young women, facilitating them come into the country, their visa work, putting them, like setting them up at a university. I mean, it's hard not to see that as working overtime to provide cover, institutional cover, structural cover for Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes. These are for people who were ultimately alleged victims of his.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's just really bad. It makes me glad this lawsuit is going forward. There's clearly a lot that's in the public interest to learn about his dealings through this manner. But the entire government, JPMorgan, with respect specifically to the situation in the Virgin Islands, seems very corrupt and actively dangerous to young women.
Yeah. Now, it's worth noting that apparently, so you heard me say that some of those disclosures, it's coming out of JPMorgan's testimony. The accusation from the Virgin Islands is, the prosecutors, is that he's trying to deflect attention from the JPMorgan, the bank is trying to deflect blame from their own role in this. I think it's worth noting for the general public, however, that there's a lot of blame to go around, and simply because there were these political figures in the Virgin Islands who were also facilitating Jeffrey Epstein's crimes allegedly, it doesn't mean that JPMorgan isn't off the hook. It's also worth noting that de Jong has not commented on any of these allegations, but that, as we mentioned, Stacey Plaskett has saying, as I've stated in the past, contributions made by Jeffrey Epstein to my campaign were donated to women and children-focused nonprofits in the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, but by 2018, there is no excuse under the sun to not know exactly who Jeffrey, and obviously she knows exactly who he is, because she knows, he didn't just show up. She knows he's a wealthy, influential person involved with the Virgin Islands, right? It's not China or India. There's not like a billion people on it. She knows who he is. She knows he can give him a lot of money. She was perfectly happy to solicit that, again, in 2018, just before he goes to prison again for sex crimes against children. Astonishing.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll continue to follow this story and have more rising for you right after this.